Good afternoon. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Today, we're going to begin the process of unpacking what we will hear tonight. President's address before the Congress of the United States and before the American people. It's going to be quite a spectacle. Every indication is that Democrats, as Dr. Nee Cortez said earlier today, are in a wilderness experience. Some Democrats will be protesting based upon the colors that they wear. Nina Turner said that the African American, the Black Caucus, is going to be wearing all black tonight. That's a point to be made. Other members of Congress will be wearing rainbow paraphernalia. The LGBTQ community, that will be a statement that will be made tonight. Some have even suggested that members of Congress are going to walk out in the middle of the speech in mass protest. Some have suggested that some will be carrying egg cartons as if to demonstrate the cost of eggs and inflation. That will be a significant point. Still others will be protesting by not showing up at all. Elisa Slotkin has been selected by the Democrats to deliver the Democratic response. A member of Congress from California will be delivering the Progressive Caucus response. Reverend William Barber, under the leadership of Roland Martin Unfiltered, will be having a simulcast at the same time as the president's speech. Dr. Barber has tremendous integrity, tremendous credibility. If there ever was a person who picked up the mantle of Martin Luther King Jr.'s work in 1968 by leading the Poor People's Campaign, it is Dr. William Barber, a man that I absolutely revere and support. I have absolutely nothing disparaging to say about his leadership. Great man. But all of the evidence is, and it should be clear to all, that we're going to be hearing not a choir, but a band of the disaffected, a band of people who within 40 days of Donald Trump's inauguration no longer just see themselves as a rainbow coalition of colors, the red, the yellow, the brown, the black, and the white, but they represent the pain patches that exist in our nation. The federal workers who've been laid off by the tens of thousands, now unemployed. The USAID workers feeding the poor in foreign countries as a soft form of diplomacy, now no longer employed. Diversity, equity, and inclusion programs throughout the Pentagon, throughout every federal administrative agency, including the rollback by private sector companies that are being threatened not only by the administration, but by MAGA supporters. They represent pain patches. And I remember something my father said in 1984, 1988, when he talked about the Rainbow Coalition of the Disaffected, a concept that theologically he expanded upon from Howard Thurman in Jesus and the Disinherited. A real sermon for people whose backs are against the wall. What is the ministry of Jesus of Nazareth? And how does it speak to a people whose backs are against the wall? Should we boycott Donald Trump's speech tonight? In my personal opinion, someone who served in the Congress of the United States for 17 years, my answer is unequivocally not. No, don't. Why give the MAGA crowd the ability to say, you haven't even heard the speech? How are you going to protest what you haven't even heard? it comes off as unreasonable. Why define it that way? Why not the reasonable response? Even if the reasonable response of decorum does reflect the resistance and the pain and the antagonism that exists within in this hour of the American body politic. But still, there's a way to go about doing things. The means, Dr. King taught us, do not justify the ends. We don't get to shoot our neighbor, throw eggs at our neighbor, interrupt our neighbor, or as Joe Wilson did in the middle of Barack Obama's speech, call him a liar. We don't get to just do that. Dr. King says that for the Christian, the end that we seek is pre-existent in the means. Christianity is a very, very difficult religion because it requires us to think before we act. It also requires us to anticipate the response of our opposition at the level of their heart, at the level of their mind. That's why C.T. Vivian and, too many people to name, James Orange and others, taught us that nonviolence is about our opposition's heart and appealing to their conscience. When we come forward, I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. We're going to talk about what the response could be. I'm not saying it's what it should be. I'm just saying what it could be. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. You're listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
I'm with Jesse Jackson Jr. Only on KBLA Talk 1580.
Yeah, y'all, come on.
Here come the drums. At KBLA Talk 1580, we fight the power every day.
Yeah,
gotta give us what we want. Gotta give us what we need. Hey!
I listen to KBLA and I love the commercials. I know what the commercials mean. I also, if I'm looking and trying to figure something out, I need something to talk to me that might hit me. And it happens on TV because, every time they show a sporting event, they got the pharmaceutical companies back to back telling people how to fix the sickness on the same stuff that they sell them. So we get it.
Yep, we get it too, Chucky. And that's why at KBLA Talk 1580, we don't black down.
Drop it! Our freedom of speech is freedom of death. We got to fight the powers that be. Fight the power! Fight the power!
Downy Rinse and Refresh. Break up with stinky clothes.
Rinse it out.
Every now and then I get a little bit tired of the stinks that just will never come out.
Oh, Downy in the rinse straight.
Every now and then I rinse it out. One wash and it delivers. One wash, it smells so clean. Downy Rinse and Refresh, it's a dream.
Downy Rinse and Refresh. Fights odor in just one wash. Guaranteed.
Oh, could this vintage store be any cuter?
Right? And the best part? They accept Discover.
Accept Discover? In a little place like this? I don't think so, Jennifer.
Oh, yeah, huh? Discover's accepted where I like to shop. Come on, baby, get with the times.
Right. So we shouldn't get the parachute pants?
These are making a comeback. I think.
Discover is accepted at 99% of places that take credit cards nationwide. Based on the February 2024 Nielsen report.
If you're living with dry age-related macular degeneration or dry AMD, you may be at risk for developing geographic atrophy or GA. GA can be unpredictable and progress rapidly, leading to irreversible vision loss. Now there's something you can do to
slow it down, get it going slower.
Izervay is proven to slow GA progression.
Izervay gets GA going slower.
Izervay or avacincaptad pagel is a prescription eye injection used to treat GA. Don't take it if you have an infection or active swelling in or around your eye. Izervay can cause eye infection, retinal detachment, or increased risk of wet AMD. Izervay may temporarily increase eye pressure. Your vision may be impaired after an eye injection or exam. Don't delay. Ask your doctor about Izervay today.
Izervay gets GA going slower.
Visit Izervay.com. That's IZERVAY.com.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr., and welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Tonight is the President's missive to Congress. The State of the Union process was begun by George Washington in his first presidency. It continued quite some time until such time as presidents just began sending letters to Congress, missives, if you will, on what the president expects in the budget. In 1913, in the middle of Jim Crow, one of the great intellectual racists who ever held the office of the presidency, Woodrow Wilson, reinstated the process. He was clear on the Democratic Party of 1793, the party of slavery that became the party of the Confederacy, that became the party against Reconstruction, Lincoln's Reconstruction, that became the party in the South in support of Jim Crow. In the middle of Jim Crow, the party of 1854 started in Ripon, Wisconsin, called the Republican Party. It started on a single principle: to stop the expansion of slavery into the western states. Beyond Lincoln, it began to change. Lincoln's successor pardoned the entire Confederacy and the slaveholders. By the time Woodrow Wilson becomes president, he's inherited the Democrats and the Republicans, both sides warring over one central question: the role of the Negro in American society, however they want to call it, the budget, housing, education, federal priorities, whose community was going to get taxes, who was going to get welfare. That's where the system came from. And so I'm the contrarian, along with a few others who do not believe we should boycott the State of the Union. We need to listen to exactly what Donald Trump has to say. Methinks we should listen to the speech so that the next day we can respond appropriately, thoughtfully, and not emotionally, because ignoring it will not go away. The example I used: we cannot ignore an uninvited fly to the family reunion or to the State of the Union. It's not going away. We are either going to shoo the fly, swat the fly, spray the fly, or it's going to use the restroom on our food. We have no choice but to listen and then state our opposition. I do have some concerns about the appropriated and what is the appropriate Democratic response. Alyssa Slotkin, a white woman, white women did not vote for Kamala Harris and did not vote for Democrats. They told us that the central issue in this campaign was about abortion. They didn't care. What does Alyssa Slotkin have to do with speaking to our base? Black women who voted for Kamala Harris and stuck with the party. Black men, they said we weren't going to stick with the party, but we did stick with the party. Where's Raphael Warnock to speak? And why would they choose someone within the Democratic ranks as opposed to someone like William Barber as the official spokesperson on behalf of Democrats because of the work that he has done? A lot of concerns. One way or the other, we will not have an appropriate response unless we listen to the speech. And the speech does matter. I sat through 17 of them. I want to know who's in every row, in every aisle. I want to know who's reaching, trying to shake Donald Trump's hand, who's smiling, who's giggling, who's happy, who's smiling, who gives standing ovations, who's sitting down with their arms folded. I want to see it all. I want to digest the experience. I was about 20 seats away from Joe Wilson when he called Barack Obama a liar. I looked up at the president and I said, do you want me to go snatch him out of the Congress or smack him in his mouth? But the Barack Obama that I know wouldn't have stood for it. In fact, if I'd have done that, he probably would have attacked me and not Joe Wilson. But with that said, the end that we seek is pre-existent in the means. Do we want to live with all Americans at the end of the struggle? Do we want to get along? Do we want our neighbors to respect us and we respect our neighbors? Then we have to give some thought about how we're going to engage our neighbors. You don't just get to go out and slap them in the mouth. There are consequences way down the road when you do that. So how we conduct ourselves does matter. So Dr. King says we take a knee. He says we boycott the bus company nonviolently. We refuse to take rides. Well, my guest today is a long-time successful career in politics, Atiba steps up to the plate for most of the challenge, becoming an author. Like most authors, as a child, he read books, over 400 to be exact. He lived in Bamako, Mali for 2 years without a television. He wants to make the world a better place. And I've asked him to be on our show today, one, to lay the foundation because he was the deputy director of the Caucus of Black State Legislators. He knows what Black state legislators, not congressmen, but Black state legislators are going through and thinking at this hour as the union appears to be far more than perfect, less than perfect, dissolving. Atiba, welcome to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here.
It's an honor to have you. Atiba, share with us, from your perspective and your engagement in politics, where in this crucial, pivotal moment in the American body politic do the American people find themselves?
I think it's funny, because I live here in Miami, Florida, in a red state where a lot of people, of course, we know, voted for this presidential administration who, I won't say a lot yet, but I will tell you that some of the people that I'm talking to are upset and disappointed with the decision that they made. I'm betting that there are a lot of other people who aren't willing to say so. But in terms of the situation that America is in right now, she's on life support. And the reality is the only people who can get her off of life support are the people. And when I look back and think about being there in Chicago over the summer and for the DNC convention and listening to, it was almost as if, in my opinion, we had a party too soon. We were ready to rejoice too soon. And we forgot that there was still work to be done, and there will always be work to be done. So I do believe that right now that this is a reality check for us. We are feeling very uncomfortable, and we are meant to feel uncomfortable, but we can feel uncomfortable, but that doesn't give us the reason to stop working. So I think America, again, though, is on life support.
I really appreciate that, because one of Dr. King's final speeches and final statements, he talked about the nation itself being sick. And to suggest that the nation is on life support is an analogy that is consistent with Dr. King's diagnosis of the problem. Sick with racism, he said, sick with militarism, sick with greed and an obsession with capitalism, if you will, in that we weren't looking at our neighbors. We weren't giving our neighbors serious consideration. And that our reflection included a tragic, if you will, a tragic selfishness that requires us as believers to dig a little bit deeper, not to see someone's color, but to see someone's pain. I shared with my father not long ago that while I thought his idea in 84 and 88 for Rainbow Coalition made plenty of sense for political calculus, it's the only way to win big cities, to win big states. But the reality is, in the Donald Trump era, from Social Security to Medicare to Medicaid, to all of the programs we've fought for since Brown versus the Board of Education, it seems to me that the American people are going to experience pain, and that we ought to be organizing people's pain and not their color. Your thoughts?
Franklin Roosevelt said, the only limit to our realization of tomorrow will be our doubts of today. And the errors in terms of the shoulders of the people that we stand on had an incredible outlook on the future, what they believed was not just promised, but what was guaranteed, but that we had to work towards getting there. And so the work today that is to be done is for us to erase out of our minds any doubt that there is a better way forward. I have an aunt, she's 105 years old. Her mind is sharp. To be able to talk to her and ask her, what were your feelings when you found out about Emmett Till? What were your feelings about Dr. King? What were your feelings about when your father ran for president? And to be able to get her feelings, and almost as if she goes right back to those moments, is incredible. It's empowering. She was born in 1919, to put that in perspective. So, a few years ago, sitting with her, I asked her, and this is during the first Trump administration, I asked her, what do you think? And she said, things are going to get worse before they get better. So every few months I would ask her, well, Auntie, is it going to get worse? And she goes, yeah, it's still going to get worse. But I can tell you that lately she has been saying, oh, it's going to get better. So for me, that's hope, to be able to lean on someone who, with her sage wisdom, with her years, within in this country, to be able to say it's going to get better. But it's only going to get better when we realize that it's not going to get better by resting or by waiting for an elected official. You, as a congressional member, know more about this than any of us, that we can't just keep giving our power to elected officials and expecting the elected officials to do everything, because it takes the power of the people to move policy. That's why men and women and children sat at lunch counters. That's why they protested. That's why they marched. And it wasn't just a march to show that we were together. It was a march to move the elected officials, to move the hearts, to move the mind, and to better the soul of America.
I think Lyndon Johnson recognized the point that you just made very clearly in his Pre-Voting Rights Act of 1965 speech, when he referred to Appomattox and Concord and Lexington, and he talked about the significance and turning points of those moments in American history. But at the same time, he acknowledged that the right to vote had been won last week, to quote him very specifically, last week in Selma, Alabama. So too it was in Selma, Alabama. And I think that this third force, we want to see our representatives, and that's all we ask them to do, to represent us. We want to see them engage. But this third force, this force that Dr. King recognized in Birmingham, that he recognized obviously in Montgomery, while the president was doing what he had to do with the Democrats and the Republicans, and quite frankly, neither of them were united behind the cause of African Americans in that hour, the law was actually being written in the streets because the people were demanding that it be written in the streets. I think Jesse Jackson understood that third force, and after 55 decades in public life, he organized, if you will, the third force outside of the elective offices. He could speak much freer. He was much freer as a leader, not constrained by the 2-year election cycle or the 4-year presidency or the 6-year senatorial terms. He was free. And as someone who has been the deputy director of the Black Caucus of State Legislators, I think we have an expectation that our politicians are somehow going to lead us somewhere that they are incapable of leading us without the moral leadership of a William Barber or an Otis Moss III or Reverend Sharp or James Meeks or some of these ministers who are out here in these streets doing things. Your thoughts, Atiba?
So a couple of things come to mind. One, I mentioned my aunt, and so let me add that she is the granddaughter of slaves. And I'm a distant cousin of Frederick Douglass. And so when I can go back and lean on those parts of my life and who I am, I recognize that the slave who was working in the fields, I don't believe that they ever said, I want to be a free Black man. I think they said I want to be a free human. And I think that we really have to get back to how are we going back to the idea of being human? Because what we see is a dehumanization, and we keep allowing ourselves within the context of a society that we keep asking to be accepted, when the acceptance is not up to someone else to accept me. The acceptance has to be first within our own minds, to accept the fact that I am a human being. And in order to be human and to have all these rights that are here within the American concept, I'm not saying to stop saying that we're African American, but to make the rest of the country recognize I am just as American as anyone. I am an American. I can wear a flag on my lapel. I am an American, and I'm endowed with certain inalienable rights, and among them are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And my happiness is contingent upon my mind and what I set forth and what I'm willing to accept or not accept.
You know, Atiba, when I reflect upon what you're saying in this final minute before we come forward from our break, I think about just how patriotic Frederick Douglass's speech was when he talked about the 4th of July. I think about Dr. King insisting that we march with the Bible in one hand and the flag in the other. I think about the kind of new patriotism that Jesse Jackson represented even as he protested. It wasn't a anti-American sentiment. Somehow we've given them the moral argument, the Bible, we've given them the flag, and it doesn't leave us much to stand on other than our culture and our race. And we're going to have to see that the only way to build this country and to make this union more perfect is we're going to have to organize, in my opinion, the people by their pain. And I promise you there are more people in pain than there were today than there were 40 days ago. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. You're listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. When we come forward, Atiba will be our guest.
It's afternoon drive time with Jesse Jackson Jr. Only on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Amber Payton with 4 Things You Should Know with BIN News. President Trump's address to a joint session of Congress is just hours away. He posted the quote, "Night will be big," end quote, and he will quote, "Tell it like it is," end quote. You can listen and hear live on the Black Information Network starting at 9 p.m. A recall effort against Black Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass is underway, reportedly led by Republicans. Bass' strategist calls it a quote, "right-wing stunt," end quote. She's faced criticism for her absence during recent wildfires. Massachusetts officials are ordering Southwick Regional Schools to make changes after a weak response to racist incidents, including an online slave auction post. The district must revise its bullying policies, but has made progress with a student-led anti-bias program. And HBCU Howard University's alternative spring break has kicked off with 1,300 students dedicating their break to service locally and across more than 12 states. Get BIN News on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
The CONCACAF Nations League finals arrive at SoFi Stadium March 20th through the 23rd. USA versus Panama, followed by Canada versus Mexico. Get your tickets now on Ticketmaster. For more information, visit CONCACAFNationsLeague.com/tickets.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
I'm a bad man.
The Lakers defense has been a big part of the team's 6-game winning streak. During the streak, the Lakers are averaging 8.7 steals and 4.8 block shots. The Lakers are going for their 7th straight win tonight against New Orleans at Crypto.com. The Lakers will be missing 2 starters. Austin Reeves has a calf strain and Rui Hachimura has a hyperextended knee. The Clippers are at Phoenix tonight. More bad news for the Dallas Mavericks and their fan base. They lost Luka Doncic to the Lakers last month. Tuesday morning, the Mavericks found out that All-Star guard Kyrie Irving will miss the rest of the season with a torn ACL in his left knee. On top of that, Anthony Davis, the player Doncic was traded for, is still recovering from a strained abductor muscle. AD has played only 3 quarters for the Mavericks since the monumental trade on February 2nd. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
I'm Reverend Gerald, the life coach. Is someone you love struggling with addiction and mental illness? Is improving your family's health important? Want to leave a legacy that your family can grow? Are you ready to enhance your perception of life experiences? Then wake up weekends at 7 a.m. with Urban Family Focus and get the wisdom, opportunity, resources, and motivation to live your best life. Join the conversation on Urban Family Focus Saturday and Sunday at 7 a.m.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black. KBLA Talk 1580 is pleased to announce that, like George and Weezy,
Well, we're moving on now.
earlier this year, we were named as semifinalists for the American Climate Leadership Awards 2025. Wait for it. You ready? KBLA Talk 1580 was recently selected as one of 10 finalists being considered for this prestigious award. Hundreds of organizations, institutions, and even cities were nominated in the selection process. But KBLA Talk 1580 has made it to the finals. You're invited to watch live on Wednesday, April 16th at 10 a.m. Pacific 1 p.m. Eastern, 12 p.m. Central, as Eco America announces the winner and the runner-up, awarding over $200,000 in prize money. To watch live, just go to ecoamerica.org to register and attend the online ceremony. That's ecoamerica.org. Don't miss the presentation of the American Climate Leadership Awards 2025, Wednesday, April 16th, and wish us luck. Caring about the climate, caring about the community, changing the conversation. We're KBLA Talk 1580, and we've got your black.
Sometimes we lose, sometimes we win. Sometimes we try to fit it all in. Sometimes we don't know what's in store. Sometimes we find what we're looking for. Sometimes we're rolling easy and free. Sometimes 1 and 1 makes 3. So much to love along this ride. That's why Nationwide is on your side.
Nationwide Mutual Insurance Company and affiliates, Columbus, Ohio.
You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. My very special guest is Atiba. Atiba is the former Deputy Executive Director for the National Black Caucus of State Legislators, NBCSL. He is a strategic alliance consultant and president of Party Politics US. He's worked as a TV political contributor for BNC News, The Heat, In the Know with Mo, The Leslie Marshall Show, iHeartRadio, GovExec, 96.3 WHUR, and One America News Network. He most recently was a guest host on Rising, an American daily news and opinion web series produced by Washington, D.C. political newspaper, The Hill. In 2020, Atiba released his first novel, Saving Grace, a political thriller. Atiba, welcome back to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Atiba, what would you like to hear tonight, and what do you expect to hear?
I would love to hear an apology. But we both know that's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. I mean, tonight the president is going to be unapologetic. You know, he's gonna. I had an elected official in Tennessee, state legislator, tell me once, Atiba, you know, the only way to get out of a hole is to stop digging. And I think right now is the time to really let the president continue digging. You know, we know he's going to focus on illegal migrants, illegal immigration. He's going to explain, I think, that Americans it's going to be painful to what's going to happen in the next few months, maybe next few years. Who knows? I mean, with all the government cuts that have been made, and to explain why they're doing it. But, you know, they spent a lot of time talking about a deep state. We are experiencing the deep state. This is what a deep state is about. And if we don't like it, then we've got to figure out some ways to mobilize and get ready for midterms, and also focus on New Jersey and Virginia elections that are later this year. But in terms of what the president is going to talk about, he's going to talk about how it's necessary that we have a trade deficit, why tariffs are important. I have to say this about the president. During his time in office, when he did speak before Congress, it was probably the time that I saw him the most controlled. And right now he has I think a pretty good chief of staff who's keeping him pretty much more disciplined than we saw in during his first term. And I like to look at this as this is the 5th year of his second term. And so he knows what he's doing. He knows, and he told us in his first term that he likes chaos. Well, he's bringing the chaos. So tonight It's his opportunity to explain his vision for America. I just don't believe that that vision is one that's encompassing for all Americans.
Before we before we hear your take on what you would like to hear, I'm willing to bet the Vegas odds makers that that when he gets to DEI, when he gets to the Department of Education, I think he leaves the script. I think some JD Vance, some cheerleader in the audience from the Republican side of the aisle is going to say something. Now, don't get me wrong. This is completely the opposite of Mahalia Jackson in 1963 at the I Have a Dream speech when she hollers out of nowhere, "Tell him about the dream, Doc. Tell him about the dream." And then Dr. King turns and says, "I have a dream today." And heads on into a dramatic conclusion that's changed the course of not only oratory, but spirit, energy on the entire planet. I think he's just one JD Vance pat on the back. One, when you step in here, you need to be grateful. You need to be thankful. And
I mean,
I think he is.
and those are all good points. Going back to what you're asking, what would I like to hear him say? I like to hear him say that and explain how what he's doing is good for our national security.
Mm.
I like for him to talk about how buddying up to Putin and Russia is making our country more secure.
Mm.
I like to have him say why he's put such an emphasis on illegal immigration or immigration and the border, and why there are so many people who keep trying to come to this country.
Mm.
I'd like for him to explain why he put us in a position for withdrawal from Afghanistan that left it in an untenable situation when President Biden was in office.
Mm.
And I really like for him to tell us why he thinks the things that he's doing is making America stronger and better. Because I believe that the things that I continue to see just in these first 40 days, 40 some odd days, has put us and weakened us as a country internally and externally.
Atiba, do you anticipate that there's going to be a turning point in his desire, if it's at all possible, to stop digging the hole that he is constantly digging in? I kind of heard that that's really what Carville was saying when he said, Democrats just need to sit back and essentially play possum. And I shared with the owners of these stations, Melody Span Cooper and with Tavis Smiley, that the Negro in America is not afforded the luxury of sitting back and playing possum. We smell horse manure before we step in it. But something's coming, and it doesn't look good for us.
But we've been sounding the alarm for a long time. So people don't tend to listen. So, my mother, when I was a kid, and I'm sure other grandparents and others, this wasn't just her saying it, hard head makes a soft behind.
Oh, my mama led with that.
so it's a lot of soft behinds coming. It's because there are a lot of hard heads. Now, I do believe that we cannot respond to every single thing that happens. I think that what Carville said has some relevance, but I also think that what he also added was that it's going to have to come from the people, that it won't come from the elected officials. And so sit back, let the people organize, because they are organizing. Now, what I'm getting from some friends, in fact, I got a text today from a friend. She asked, why don't I see more people of color at the protests? And my answer was, we did our job. We did our part. You got to go back and talk to your friends who voted for this, because 76 million people made a decision that they wanted to go back to someone who mishandled COVID, someone who mishandled the economy, someone who mishandled relations already on an international scale, and someone who had already tipped his hand and showed us that they had relations with some of our foreign adversaries. So you know, in terms of where we are and we're today, I think that it is okay for a minute. I'm not saying for completely. It's okay to be quiet, but it's not okay to not work, because part of this is that we became complacent, and maybe we can talk about this later, but I do believe we became complacent after Barack Obama became president.
When we come forward on the Jesse Jackson Jr. show, Atiba, we are going to talk about that complacency. I do want to just comment very briefly, opine on the idea that I actually think it's a good thing that in these state legislatures around the country that we haven't showed up in the numbers that we could. I mean, I think, and I've asked this question of a number of theologians on our program, why has the white community never produced a Martin Luther King Jr.? Why have they not produced a non-violent activist on the scale of Dr. King in the history of their people? Well, several of them had some very shocking answers, and I'll share that with you when we come forward. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. My very special guest is Atiba.
While you're stuck in traffic, we can at least bring you up to speed on the news of the day. You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. only on KBLA Talk 1580.
We ask seniors how to prevent Medicare scams.
My best advice, if you get a phone call, do not talk to the person. These people are well trained. Don't talk to them.
They don't know me. They're just trying to scam me.
Don't be fooled. Hang up. Just hang up.
Never give out your Medicare number.
They're going to get your number to put in a false claim.
If I get a call from someone, I don't pick up the phone. And should I pick up the phone and they ask for information, then I hang up.
How do you detect Medicare fraud?
Just like I check my credit card statements, I check my Medicare statements monthly.
Scammers can get a hold of your number, order medical devices through your account, and you're not even going to know about it if you don't look at your statement.
Check your statement every month.
If you get your statement and you see something that you know you did not have done, you report it.
Call your senior Medicare Patrol.
To report Medicare fraud, call the Senior Medicare Patrol at 855-613-7080.
Sometimes we lose, sometimes we win. Sometimes we try to fit it all in. Sometimes we don't know what's in store. Sometimes we find what we're looking for. Sometimes we're rolling easy and free. Sometimes 1 and 1 makes 3. So much to love along this ride. That's why Nationwide is on your side.
Nationwide Mutual Insurance Company and Affiliates, Columbus, Ohio.
Diane from Michigan, a disabled senior citizen trying to get by. Henry from Florida, a veteran fighting to make ends meet. Elena from Arizona, a mother struggling to feed her daughter. Hi, I'm Connie Britton, and I support Feeding America because they help provide over 6 billion meals to people in need each year, like Diane, Henry, and Elena. Learn more at feedingamerica.org. Feeding America, 200 food banks strong.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. LA County's new Justice Care and Opportunities Department, or JCOD, is here to support justice-involved individuals and their families. The JCOD Support Center is now taking calls at 1-833-LACJCOD. That's 1-833-522-5263. Available 7 days a week from 6 a.m. to 11 p.m., the Support Center is your one-stop shop for re-entry issues and court support. They offer court reminders, connections to local services, transportation assistance for housing, court appearances, and childcare. The JCOD hotline provides personalized help to connect you with services that you need. And don't forget to check out justiceconnect.org for more information. Remember, it's free and available every day at 1-833-522-5263. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Lena Bloom for the Bail Project. Imagine you're stuck in a jail cell and you can't afford bail and someone offers you a way out. Just plead guilty and you can go home and kiss your kids goodnight. What do? What thousands have. You plead guilty whether you are or not. Cash bail makes poverty a crime. That's why the Bail Project helps those who can't afford it while fighting to end cash bail. because freedom should be free.
Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Texting privacy policy and terms and conditions posted at textplan.us. Texting enrolls for recurring automated text marketing messages. Message and data rates may apply. Reply stop, opt out. Individual results may vary. Consult a doctor prior to use.
If you've struggled to lose weight in the past, this important message is for you because you could lose as much as 50 pounds or more with Zelfie. Zelfie makes it easy and affordable to get weight loss treatment 100% online. Zelfie providers can prescribe FDA-approved GLP-1 weight loss medications clinically shown to help people lose weight like Wegovy, Zepbound, and others. Plus, help get the medication covered by insurance, so it's as little as $0 a month.
The doctors are super helpful, and the meds have been a game changer. It's the first program I've had success with.
Before Zelfie, I was unable to lose weight, even though I was eating healthy and exercising 6 days a week. Zelfie helped me not only lose weight, but I feel so much better.
Text GOAL to 200-300 to get started today with Zelfie and see if weight loss medications like Wegovy or Zepbound are right for you. Don't wait. Text now for a link to your exclusive offer. Text GOAL to 200-300. That's GOAL to 200-300. GOAL to 200-300.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. You're listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. A very special guest is Atiba. Atiba is a former Deputy Executive Director of the National Black Caucus of State Legislators. He's a strategic alliance consultant and president of Party Politics USA. Very quickly, Atiba, the scholars basically concluded that their privilege in the United States does not let them need to create a Martin Luther King Jr. until they begin to lose these rights, until they begin to see the rollback on the privileges that they have been able to take advantage of since Brown versus the Board of Education, since the Civil Rights Act of 64, the Voting Rights Act of 65, and public accommodations. In other words, the Negro is responsible for the entire New World, culturally, politically, and otherwise. They don't have to create a Martin Luther King. They've never needed one. And so I have no pushback whatsoever on their activity at the state legislative level and around our country in front of federal buildings demanding that the Doge and the Elon Musks be reined in and stopped. We're in the final segment of our show, Atiba. I want you to complete any and all and offer all thoughts that you may have. And
so first,
hopefully conclude us on some hope.
Yeah, first off, yeah, and I really do want to bring some hope to this. You know, first off, you know, Muhammad Ali, we talked about America, and I love this poem of his. It's, I am America. I am the part you won't recognize, but get used to me. Black, confident, cocky, my name, not yours. My religion, not yours. My goals, my own. Get used to me. And that's where I'm going when I'm having these conversations now with folks to say, in no way am I not happy to be an African-American or part of the African-American community. But part of the language that I'm going to use more so going forward is simply being an American. And it's because others, I know who I am. I know who I'm related to. I know that, you know, that also, as I tell people, you look at the complexion of my skin, surely someone was raping my great-great-grandmothers in slavery. That's how I got to be this color after you kidnapped my ancestors from Africa and brought them here. But overall, what we have been trying to do is get back to being human. And so there are those that are in this country that think that, and I know Kamala kept saying we're not going back, but I don't know if we define what we weren't going back to. I think the issues are in our tissues. And the issues are something that continues to get transferred to us generation after generation. And at some point, we have to stop it, and it has to be us that stops it. And I think, you know, when I think about people like your father, people like Dr. King, people like Fannie Lou Hamer, people who came before us who've been through this, we're going through this. And I said before the break that because we became complacent under President Obama, because we're sick and tired of being sick and tired. because to be a Black person in America means to be in a rage almost all of the time.
Not James Baldwin.
But I too want to get out of that rage.
Yeah.
But I don't believe that we can get out of that rage until we first create a course within our own minds, which is what the president has done. He has created an idea in the minds of people that once Barack Obama got into the White House, which I would love to see changed to the president's house, because I think words matter. And as long as we keep saying the White House, people are going to start believing that that only person that can be there is a white person. America, I'm just going to say this: America has an ethnicity caste problem, and we have to break out of the shackles of that. We are still being enslaved by this idea, and if we want someone else to let us go and to free us, we have to first free ourselves.
Share with us your work, Saving Grace, the novel by Atiba.
Yeah, the idea of this was I worked for the EPA, my first job out of school, and I was educated a lot about environmental issues and that what happens upstream affects everyone downstream. And the story starts off with the main character being in Chicago, actually, and moving back to Washington, D.C., which is where I'm from. And it's the whole theme, and there's 2 more books coming after this, Chasing Spence and Redemption. And the whole idea is that nothing in politics is ever what it seems. And I will admit that some of the things that are playing out now politically are helping to inspire me too in terms of this 3rd manuscript. But the whole idea is that we watch television, and Jesse, I'm sure that there were plenty of times that you were in a room or said something and you saw something put into the press where they said something happened that wasn't really in the context of what happened in the room where you were in. I was just listening to Hamilton, the soundtrack to Hamilton this morning in the gym. And there's a song that I love on there about I want to be in the room where it's happening, the room where the deals are being made. And so often we don't have the opportunity to be in those rooms, and we don't know how those deals are affected us or impacting us. But the whole idea of this is my main character has been kidnapped and he doesn't know why, and it's all tied to a rising political star. And he has to put the pieces of it back together. And as he's pulling it back together, he's realizing that nothing is what it seems.
Wow. I mean, that speaks to me in a lot of different ways. And I can't wait to wrap my mind around the novels. They sound like they're made for a movie. And I have to congratulate you for the idea that if in fact these ever do make it to film, that this is the way to tell, to tell narratives, right?
Yes, sir.
That you think about educating people who don't go back to books as often as we'd like them to, but that if it's on film itself becomes a form of communication in an era where books are being banned, where people are being discouraged to read, where history means less today than it did yesterday, when in effect and in fact, it is history that is driving the current narratives. And this too will just be a data point on a very, very long timeline of the national story. And I really appreciate also what you had to say about being an American. I think that when you speak in these terms, it's not us versus them. Some of us came over on a slave boat. Some of us came over on immigrant ships, the Nina, the Santa Marina, the Pina, or whatever the other names were that we often talk about in American history. But we're all in the same boat now. And this nation is either going to sink or swim on the basis of our ability to come together. Atiba, we have about 2 minutes before we close. Your final thoughts.
Well, all of that. Thank you so much for that. And thank you also, Jesse, for giving a speech many, many years ago when I was at the Congressional Black Caucus, and that was inspiring to me to be, a youth leader in terms of, and also the work that I get to do today. Being an American comes with certain rights and privileges, and we often talk about freedom. We also have to talk about that with freedom comes great responsibility. And we have to be willing to accept that responsibility in terms of how we all live together in this environment within this society. And this is a tough road that we're going, but here's a hope. I have a 105-year-old aunt who keeps telling me that things are going to get better. but they're only going to get better until we pick up and recognize that it's up to us. This is up to us now. I will also mention, Chicago, in terms of, I grew up, my parents became Muslim when I was a kid and joined the Nation of Islam. And one of the thematic things about the nation was that you do for yourself. You do for self. And so I think right now it's time for us to do for self. We can chart the way forward. We can rewrite history. We can do this. Yes, we can. Yes, we will. We will do this together. And don't be afraid to listen to people who don't agree with you, because they too want to be heard. We've got to figure out how, if we want someone else to listen to us, we have to be willing to also listen to others.
Our guest has been Atiba, former Deputy Director of the National Black Caucus of State Legislators. Atiba, I hope you'll join us again on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Be happy to.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. When we come forward, we will discuss what we just witnessed.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.